Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do in this video was actually do a quick, request fulfill, where somebody was saying that they wanted a video about how to read the HUD and use your MFDs because they didn't know how to check their fuel, and they didn't really know what a lot of these things did, and considering it's easy to get stranded on a planet now, I figured it's probably worthwhile actually talking about, what everything on here actually represents. So let's go ahead and start off with a couple different things. I'm going to go ahead and decouple my ship. And you can now see that I've got two green elements on the center of my screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the inner thought system. This indicator over here, kind of the rounded rectangle with the triangle on it, is basically the vector your ship is currently traveling in. What it's indicating is that my ship is moving in this direction. Now, with that, you still always have the crosshair at the very front of your ship, and that's going to indicate where the true center of your nose is facing. So, it doesn't matter if I'm facing all the way over here or down here. Regardless, the ship is always traveling in this direction. Your ship is just rotating and facing other directions. Now, also there, within the middle, you're going to actually see in the crosshair kind of the circle with the dot in the middle. That's where your weapons are currently facing. Now, I fly with gimbals locked since I'm a dual joystick user, so they're always going to be pretty close to the center of this. However, if you unlock your gimbals and start moving around, like with your mouse, for example, you're going to see that that's actually moving around and typically leading where the actual crosshair in the center is, and that's going to be pretty unique to those that are going to be using mouse as opposed to joystick, and it really depends on that gimbal lock feature. Now, the HUD elements that you see around here, I mentioned I was in decoupled mode, so I'm currently, I have the X through coupled indicating that I am decoupled. If I recouple my ship, you'll see that the X goes away. Below it is G-Safe, which helps to prevent you from blacking out, and if I want to turn that off, I can, and you'll see it kind of flipping back and forth there. Comstab is command level stability, and ESP is your stick precision, which is typically only used for joystick users, but you'll notice that they basically behave the same way. You can turn them off or on with an indicator here. And below that's your quantum fuel capacity. Right now I'm at 583. It's a relatively large number. It's a small system right now that we're flying around in, so you're unlikely to run out, but it is worth monitoring and filling up as you need to so you don't get stranded somewhere. Up here, you've got the countermeasures that are currently available to you. The top one being Flare, which is going to be your countermeasure against heat-seeking missiles, and here is your Chaff, which is really going to be against IM-seeking missiles, or EM-seeking missiles. On this side of your HUD, you've got your current thrust. Right now, my thrust is in like the 900,000 range. The number jumps around like crazy. I don't know why it's so unstable, but it is. This is going to be your current flight mode, so I am in SCM. I'm going to change that in just a moment, and you'll actually notice my thrusters are going to change when I do that. So let's go ahead and put my landing gear down, and you'll see that I am now in precision mode, and my landing gear is deployed. Now, if you're wondering why I'm going 218 meters per second and with my landing gear down, it's because I am currently decoupled. So let me go ahead and slow back down. And you'll see that my top speed then becomes 50, but that's kind of another tale. So over here on the side, you've got this bottom slider, which can go up and down. That is going to be the amount of throttle that you're giving. So if I go up to about 50, I'm giving 50% of my throttle, and the top speed in precision mode is 50 meters per second, so that's why I'm currently going 25 meters per second. This bar up here is actually going to be your fuel, your hydrogen fuel. This is your core fuel. And this is what you're going to see start to deplete. Now, it's not going down for me right now because I'm flying around in space. I'm not going fast. I'm not using a lot of boost and thrusters. So I'm sitting at 100%. You also recollect fuel in space. Now, when you're on a planet surface and you're using a lot of boost and afterburner and you're not collecting fuel or hydrogen, you're going to see this number start to drop. So once it starts getting down around like 30 or 40, you probably want to start getting a plan to get more fuel, either by getting back into space, going to Cryastro, or just reclaiming it at a space station. And then lastly, you're going to see down here, it does display that the landing gear is deployed. Then you can see how much lower my thrust is now that I'm in precision mode. The last two things up top I want to talk about are actually going to be these icons over here on the left and right. This is actually on your helmet HUD, and over here you see that I've got my ship indicator, or my ship status. Everything is green, meaning it's healthy. As I start taking shots, you're going to notice the shields start depleting and start going away, and then as your hull starts taking damage, things will start turning orange and red. Over here is actually your target's information, so it'll show the kind of the same thing that you see over here, and a little bit of information about the ship, though it is a little bit wonky right now. So moving past the HUD elements, what we have is your MFDs, or multifunction displays. I chose the Cutlass to kind of give you an idea of a ship that has a ton of them available, meaning you have a lot of customization, which is a nice perk. That being said, most ships only have 2, 3 of them, so it's important to know how you can actually interact with them. And typically what you want to do in ships like that is take advantage of the menu button, which will present you with the 5 core options: heat, energy, shields, weapons, and comms. So if we run through these real quick, heat is actually going to give you your overall kind of heat output for your ship, including some numbers that are going to impact your overall like signature. It's also going to give you a breakdown on what your weapons, shields, power plant, and thrusters are currently doing. And then when you typically go into your items, you can start seeing like what the temperature is on those items. You can see what the actual like health of those items is, the power they're taking, and then you can actually start turning things on and off as you like. Moving past heat, we'll get into energy. Again, I'm on the item screen, so you see a lot of those same indicators here. If we end up going over to system, you're going to notice 2 different things. The usage right here is going to be your overall power plant. Right now, I'm using 59% of my power plant's overall capacity. I'm also not flying fast. I'm not shooting a lot. I'm not doing a lot of things that are real demanding. However, you can actually tweak this number. Probably the simplest thing to do is actually just click the stealth button. You'll notice it drops down to what the ship considers a stealth, which is at about 18% of my overall usage. You can see that my number over here has actually dropped off. You can see that my signatures have dropped, meaning I'm a much harder target to see. I can always end up turning this thing back up to max if I want to, taking me back up to about 59%. My signatures jump as well. Now over here what you have is your prioritization of your power. So you've got in the upper left, you've got your weapons, here you've got your shields, and down here you've actually got your thrusters. You can drag this around, so this would be a hybrid of saying I want to prioritize my thrusters and my shield, so this would be I need to turn and run away. If you're saying I want to chase somebody down and kill them, it may be over here, somewhere between prioritizing weapons and thrusters, and you get the balance right in the middle. Now, it's worth noting that if I come down here and say I want to give 78% of the power to the engines, that doesn't mean I'm giving the engines more power. What it means is I'm giving priority to the engines. So if I'm using a lot of engine capacity, if I'm taking damage, if I'm firing all at the same time, something's got to give at some point, right? Like this number up here is eventually going to start climbing closer to 100%, and if I'm maxed out, what's going to end up getting the power first? Well, this is saying that I'm going to make sure that my engines are getting the power before anything else. And then you kind of start making this around. So it'll basically say 78% goes here. The remaining 22% gets allocated between these two, shields and weapons, and they have to fight for that priority. All right, if we go back out, we have our shields. You can kind of see how much you're actually using right now. So the shield output on this ship is 120. That's not a percentage. I'm not taking any damage right now, so it's not actually like really in movement or anything like that. I can drop the overall, and you'll see these numbers start to fall. You'll also notice that my HUD in the upper left-hand corner is shrinking because I'm not providing the actual amount of power that it needs to keep them at full power. So I'm going to go ahead and max them back out, and you'll see that these numbers are starting to climb. The Cutlass is a ship that has 4 facing shields on it. So as I move this around, again, I can give priority and kind of shift around the way that I want this to display. If you look at my HUD in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that as I've dragged this over to the right, my left-hand shield is showing less, so I got less coverage over there and a little bit more on my right-hand side. That becomes very effective when you start taking damage from one side, or if you're trying to run away, you can end up saying, okay, I'm just trying to get out of there. Somebody's chasing me and shooting me. I want it to go like this, and I want to make sure that the rear of my ship has more power as far as the shields go than anywhere else. And it's indicated on the upper left-hand side of my screen. Over here you can see just I can have individual control here. There's not a lot I can actually talk about here other than just turn it on or off, but you can still see health and heat and everything like you do on all the other itemized screens in the ship. Coming down to weapons. The system one right here, I don't even really look at. What I typically do, I mean, it's fairly useful. You can see how many missiles you have left. You can see that you've got your grouping set here, and as far as like the weapons that you've got on board. Here is where I think things get a little bit more helpful. For example, the ship has 4 Badgers on it right now. So you can see that they are all on. 2 of them are in Weapons Group 1, 2 of them are Weapons Group 2. And then basically you see the type of ammo, so they're energy weapons, so the ammo is listed as 0 because you have 100 of them, or 100 unlimited of them, I should say. And then the same typical like status icons that you have from the other things. And then in missiles here, you can see that I'm carrying Tempest 2s. I've got their proximity type missiles. They're tracking the cross section, and I've got 24 of them. And then the last screen in here to talk about is comms. It's a bad example right now because I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. But typically what happens is when you're close enough to other ships, they'll show up here and it'll give you two options. One looks like Wi-Fi, which actually is how you can contact other ships. That's currently disabled right now. There's nothing you can really do with it. Next to that, there's also a kind of a broken QT button, which is going to be how you can end up doing like quantum travel together and do quantum linking. That's how you guys can jump together. That's not in the game right now. The only real useful thing that's in here, outside of just knowing that there's other players around you and getting their name in a very clear manner, is landing services. So when you're actually at like Port Alazar or Levski or something like that, you can click the Wi-Fi icon by that name to request your landing. That way you're not having to go into your mobiGlas to actually request landing, so you don't get a crime stat when you go down. And then in the middle is your radar. Not a lot to talk about there. We all know about the radar. So that's pretty much it. You know, that's your HUD. Those are your MFDs. That's your helmet HUD. Hopefully that covers everything that's on here. If you guys have questions about any of that, please let me know. I know it's a lot of information, but knowing it and how you can use them and the impact that it has on your ship actually has a pretty big impact on how things work for you in the verse. So let me know. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more and have a great day. Take care.